Hello, 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 Dr. Terry Jackson, one of my great mentors. It is so good to connect with you. How you been?
I've been doing pretty good, Zach. It's an honor to connect with you, and I always love our conversations and interactions.
Definitely, definitely. I want to touch on some of the things you got going on. I know you got an exciting new kind of product or offering, so we'll get to that, but um yeah, I just got back. I was in Europe as we were discussing before the call for a few weeks again. Always, I mean, we've talked about my travels before. I know you've traveled extensively as well, but it's always such a mind expander, when you see how different societies function around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I noticed your trick on Facebook as you traveled, as you put out the videos, as you actually left posts and pictures. Wonderful. As human beings. Oftentimes we get caught up in where we are geographically and we can't see the bigger picture of all that exists across this globe. And as you travel and you meet people, the first thing we have a tendency to think of are the differences, when in fact we should be thinking about what we all have in common, because that is pretty much um, where the world is, right? We've been convinced to think of people and differences when in fact it's really about what we have in common. You're just in a different place geographically than I am, but all of your wants and needs are the same.
Wow. I was just talking to this guy. I'm on Instagram. I think I'll probably try to find him in the comments. He's an American guy about my age, and he was in Iran about a week or two traveling before like we bombed the nuclear facilities. And he goes to a lot of these kind of overlooked places, I would say, and just tells the stories, connects with the people there and stuff like that. And I commented on his one post. I was like, it's so great that you're doing this, because one thing I find when I travel around the world is that pretty much most people want the same things out of life, right? They want, connections with their family, friends, they want to do meaningful work, right? They want their Maslow's, hierarchy of needs kind of accomplished. So that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to Pakistan and they asked me, so what did you think about the Pakistani people? I don't think anything about the Pakistani people. What I'm saying is you have the same wants and needs that I have. And then in hearing the propaganda, if you will, about Pakistan, and then having gone and seen and being there and then experiencing it, I'm looking around and I'm seeing these American businessmen in the hotel that I'm in, right? And I'm like, I thought we were supposed to be doing business, but the narrative is these countries that are quote unquote we deem to be not like us, to be
Mm-hmm.
our adversaries, right? We're there doing business on a major scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the people have to know. When I landed in Pakistan, I remember getting in the vehicle, traveling to the hotel, and the first skyscraper I saw, there was a big mural, and that mural was a mural of Mountain Dew. So that was a Pepsi mural, an American company. They're doing major business, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I had the privilege of going to the U.S. Embassy while I was there. And I met with the person that's over the embassy, and they were telling me the amounts of monies that they were spending and giving grants to Pakistani businesses to do business in order to keep down, I guess, the what is it called? Terrorism. They wanted to think more like Americans.
Mm. Yeah, that's something that gets talked about a lot in today's day and age, right? With like the affordability crisis in the U.S., with like young people struggling to buy homes, they say that like some young people might feel less invested in our economy. And it sounds like in Pakistan, you're less likely to engage in terrorism if you've got like a business that you want long-standing customers and stuff like that. It's just
Yes.
back to that theme.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's interesting, because I didn't, the people look different than I look simply because of the geographical region that they were in. And I'm finding that, all of that is based upon geographics, right? Over millions of years of, the, the, the evolution of the human being and whatever the geographical area you're in, that's you resemble that given the weather, right? But outside of that, the soul, the spirit, the needs, the wants, all the same.
And as I understand it, it all goes back to Africa for all of us, as a human species. So
So absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
I got one thing to touch on, and then we could get into the specifics here. But you told me something a while ago. You were kind of coaching me a bit in business, and I was bringing up some things about the company that I work for. The best way to pour in the people that I work with and stuff like that. And you said that it's important for the employer to create an environment in which people can succeed, right?
Absolutely.
So um I was in Norway, way up in the Arctic Circle, 200 miles up. Then I was down in the south of Sweden, stayed with the au pair that took care of me in 1997. Hadn't seen her since then. I was there. She was on maternity leave and with her family. And then I was crossing Denmark and then into Amsterdam. And those northern European and Scandinavian countries are really well known for solid public transport infrastructure. I think I heard in Sweden and maybe Denmark too, you can go all the way through like 6 years of higher education. So like, um, doctorate or like get your medical degree, become a doctor, etc. And people can get around with affordable trains and stuff like that. And I started to think about like, you telling me that thing about creating the environment that you can succeed. And then I thought about like they have like these incubators for businesses around, right? Where like around the world, like we have them in the US where it's like, hey, you guys come here, we're going to charge you minimal rent. You're going to be able to collab and get coaching to launch your business. And I wonder what you think about this concept of like the country as an incubator for the people's self actualization and then this kind of rising tide lifting of all boats. Like, have you ever thought about that?
Yes. And I am in agreement with, of course, as I told you, creating the environment where people can succeed. And I'm in agreement with incubators, where you actually create an environment where people can receive coaching, they can receive education around whatever their dream is around a product or a business that they're looking to start. And I would say you could probably expand that into other professions as well. Like, if someone wants to be a physician, then why not let's start that in high school, right? And create that environment where you put them around those, you specialize it, and you put them around those people in that particular environment that they can begin to learn the jargon. They can understand what the environment is like to be able to be a doctor in a hospital setting or a practice setting. You can even do that with the PAs. And I've recently just um, mentioned to a doctor friend of mine, I said, just imagine that if someone wanted to be a PA, that they could start that process in high school because now you go to college, you can go to a 2 year PA school. Why can't we do that in high school? So that we're talking about the shortage of these healthcare professionals. Why can't we start that in high school? Um,
Mm.
yeah, and look, years ago in high schools, there used to be the time where you had shop in high school, and you had all of these different occupational tricks that you could follow. Now they've moved them to college and to community colleges, right? Which is more education and more money for the system, but it's failing at producing the professionals that's needed. We can get them to market quicker, if you will.
Yeah.
Go to market is normally for products, not for human beings. But when you think of it, when you go to college, after 4 years, it's about going to market. Depending on, it just depends on what industry you're going to go to. You're still going to market. You're taking your place to market, and you're taking your skills to an employer to saying that, hey, I'm the right fit for you. So I believe that we can start those incubators earlier. We can start those incubators in college, and it's around whatever your profession is, whatever business you want to start, whatever product you may have.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can incubate all of that. So I'm a strong believer in
Yeah, it's also like this idea of like what are people's best like how do they best absorb knowledge, right? Like I think like what you're getting at a little bit is like giving them some of that like kinesthetic learning kind of like early on from high school. And I mean, high school kids are smart, right? It's interesting. I feel like our system in the US nowadays like seems like it's like maybe just at times about um, making money in the short term more so than it is about like effectiveness, you know? And like you said, like I think you said time to market, like um, yeah, I forget what term you used there, but I think that's great.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to market. Look, they are intelligent in high school, and you're right. We're more focused on money and dollars than we are on producing a good product, and that product being a good human being that can make a significant and positive contribution to society, right? And so if you give it to them early and they learn early, then we can produce more. But I think when the educational system realized that they can make money as an industry, that's when and the bankers got together and they started this whole financing of educations. And we are where we are now as a result of that. Um, that whole mindset, but we need to be having professionals get to market sooner. And there's probably should be more apprenticeships happening, right? As you learn, you work in the environment, you're 15, you're 16, you're 17 years old. By the time you graduate, you take a competency test that indicates not only are you competent in arithmetic, math, and sciences, but you're competent in the profession that you want to go in because you were placed in a specialized environment that allows you to succeed.
I think people like kind of like helping the next generation out too in apprenticeships. Like my dad's in his late 60s and he's been a lifelong chemical engineer and he's worked in all kinds of different plants. Actually, one of like my coolest experiences was in college. During the summers, I would go work in a coal-fired power plant with him, and like first they had this rule that if your kids were in college they could come and be summer help. So I learned all about how power was generated. I'd be greasing the conveyor belts all summer and stuff like that. But now my dad's at the tail end of his career, I think getting ready to retire, enter that next chapter. And they kind of have him mentoring the kids that just got out of college, helping them kind of take care of their accounts in a consultative capacity, but also start to pull away a bit and help them get kind of self-sufficient. But he's also still a phone call away if they have some sort of, I don't know, chemical reaction that's happening and they need to, consult him. I got a question. Uh, so you and this is honestly related to what we were just talking about. You posted something the other day. You said, I think you said people believe in everyone but themselves. Was it something like that?
Yes, yeah. Many people. I think I said many people believe in everything but themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. I made the realization recently, Dr. Terry, that I'm a knowledge hoarder. And I tend to just like I mean I have like a book buying problem, right? And it's good because like I'm learning so much, but I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, all right, dude, like it's time to launch a product before I have, read any more books. It's time to add value, right, to the marketplace, right? So, you know, for people out there like me that have studied a lot, have done the work, and they're getting ready to launch, maybe maybe they're putting themselves out there, putting their resume out there for a new company they want to work for, or maybe they're launching their own thing. Like, do you have any tips for anybody that is just kind of on the edge, ready to take the leap, and finding that belief within, you know?
That's a great question. Finding the belief within. Only you can find the belief within. Nobody can find that for you. You have to understand what the possibilities are for yourself. Only you can expand those possibilities, or only you can limit those possibilities. It's all you. That's something nobody can help you with. You can read all the books you want to read. Oftentimes, the evidence is before you, one way or the other. Not that if it's leaning one way, if it's leaning in a way where maybe your mind is such that you're not believing, it's not that you can never take it in the other direction. Right? That's a mind shift. Right? That's a paradigm shift. That's a seeing the world differently through the same eyes. Because there's evidence out there about that as well.
Framing.
Yeah, that's all. That's all it is. You have to be able to frame it, but you have to be able to examine your mental models and understand why it is you see the world that you see the world, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have to deconstruct that and reconstruct that with whatever it is that's going to help you succeed.
Yeah.
So the most important piece you have going for you is your mental, and only you can dictate that. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to know yourself and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, then you build your mental models around what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and most importantly, why are you doing it? You said something earlier about having a product to take to the marketplace. I'll say have a product that's going to help humanity become better.
Mm.
That's the bigger picture. In every solution, because every day we walk out the door, there's a new problem to be solved, multiple problems that's been created from the day before.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to identify that problem, understand if you have the knowledge or you can gain the knowledge to create a product or a service that'll solve that problem. And then being able to associate it the value, as you said, value add, right? So every time you produce something, you're actually adding value to humanity, not necessarily to the marketplace. Let me take that back. You're adding value to humanity, which is first and foremost. The marketplace is secondary, because if it's a value add, you're going to generate revenue, and the revenue is the byproduct of the value add to humanity.
Mm.
That's what we sometimes forget. We put the product and the potential revenue and profit before added value to humanity, what it helps humanity do, and what it helps humanity become.
Let me ask you this then. Because I've been doing a lot with AI, and obvious in some respects, right? AI might take away some jobs that people have been doing for a while. Perhaps that's a good thing because we can reinvent the impact of the work that we do or something like that. What what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that, right? Like say that I'm selling a product that, you know, used to take humans hours of kind of laborious work to do, and now we can get the repetitive processes just taken care of to the point where maybe it's more so a human tending to the garden, you know, more in that lane. And maybe I'm framing this in an overly favorable light, but like, what's your take on that? You know, how would you be
I
moving
understand.
through the marketplace?
I understand. There's a great deal of fear as a result of AI, right? But I look at the very first word. It's artificial. Okay. So it has to be created. And it has to be created by the human being. And so my question is, how do you get in front of that? How do you produce AI technology? How do you repair it when it goes awry? It's only going to be humans who can do that. So there are going to be some laborious rote type of positions that are going to be eliminated. But anytime there's been a new industry, a new technology, it's also on the other side created jobs. You have to find where you fit within them. We have to become creators, not just innovators, but we have to become creators of positions so that we can position ourselves as a creator to get ahead of the curve. I've heard a great deal of complaints, especially in the African American community, around what AI is going to do and how it's dangerous. And so you listen to all the rhetoric, but then you begin to play with it. And I just told somebody about a week and a half ago, said what I found out about AI is that it will give you the absolute truth if you know the right query to ask. You have to use it as a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to understand the right type of prompts to get you to look deeper into what you're trying to get it to do. Just don't get it to write a paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I've asked it here recently to be a mirror for me. Mirror what I think. Mirror. And so that's more of a partnership. So as I'm going through and creating this, what we'll talk about later, when I ask it to be a mirror, it tells me you're not really asking this. This is what you're really.
Mm.
Mm. I
So it gets
Yeah.
to
yeah.
the question behind the question behind the question, so that I can truly develop uh, that's going through the five whys, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That
getting
I
getting
down to
down to
first, I
first,
guess
I guess
like
like
that might
that
be
might
like
be like
first
first
principles
principles
thinking,
thinking,
like
like
yes,
getting
getting
like
like
the
the
five
five
whys.
whys.
Eventually, you
Eventually, you
get to
get to
the
the
fundamental
fundamental
why that
why
you
that
should
you
have been
should have been
asking in the
asking in the
beginning.
beginning, maybe.
yeah, absolutely. And it took you a couple questions to get there, and then after you develop even more, you ask it the same question to be that mirror, and all of a sudden, in an iterative phase, as you iterate, you go back to that same fundamental question, and it gives you different responses because you're at a different place in the iteration of what you're doing. And so it takes you much deeper. It's like, you go down a rabbit hole, and but it's a rabbit hole that is actual forward thinking and truthful,
Yeah,
where
and
you
Yeah.
can Yeah, it's
That's
That's
amazing.
that's
honestly
honestly
why
why
like
like
I'm
I'm
skeptical
skeptical
of
of
like
like
some of the
some of the
negative
negative
like
like
rhetoric
rhetoric
around like
around
that
like that
MIT
MIT
study or
study or
something like
something
that
like
because
that
I
because
feel
I feel
like
like
AI
AI
has
has
helped me
helped me
think. I
think.
mean,
I
once
mean,
I
once
got
I
my
got my
Chat
Chat
GBT
GBT
premium
premium
subscription,
subscription,
like
like
I
I
started
started
using it
using
like
it
an
like an
hour per
hour per
day.
day.
But
But
oftentimes,
oftentimes,
like for
like for
example,
example,
Dr. Terry,
Dr.
the
Terry,
other
the other
day
day
I
I
posted
posted
Brad
Brad
Jacobs is
Jacobs is
like
like
the
the
you might know him,
like
the
the
founder of
founder of
Waste
Waste
Management
Management
and
and
United
United
Hmm.
Rentals.
Rentals,
Hmm.
And he's
and
got
he's
this
got this
book
book
called How
called
to
How
Make
to
a
Make a
Few
Few
Billion
Billion
Dollars.
Dollars.
And
And
I was
I was
quoting from
quoting
the
from the
book as
book
I
as I
often
often
do on
do
the
on the
podcast. I
podcast.
have
I
like
have
an
like an
image of the
image of the
book
book
up, and I
up, and
talk
I talk
about
about
this
this
phenomena that
phenomena
I
that I
noticed
noticed
that
that
like
like
the
the
people that
people that
seem to
seem
be
to
in
be in
most
most
harmony,
harmony,
maybe
maybe
with
with
like
like
getting
getting
things out
things
of
out of
like
like
maybe like
maybe like
making money
making
or
money
something
or
like
something like
that,
that,
like
like
they
they
don't
don't
believe
believe
it to
it
be
to
a
be a
hard
hard
thing,
thing,
you know, because if
because
they
if they
believe
believe
money would
money
be
would
like
be like
far and
far and
distant from
distant from
them,
them,
maybe
maybe
they'd be
they'd
like
be like
out of
out of
harmony with
harmony with
that. I
that.
don't
I
know.
don't
It's a
know. It's
little
a
bit
little bit
like
like
woo
woo
woo and
woo and
spiritual,
spiritual,
but
but
I
I
had some
had some
people
people
comment on
comment
the
on the
little
little
TikTok
TikTok
short,
short,
like
like
talking
talking
about
about
the
the
morality
morality
of
of
billionaires, and I'm
billionaires,
like,
and like
I don't
I
know
don't
what
know
to
what to
think if
think if
billionaires should
billionaires
be
should be
allowed with the
allowed with the
exponential
exponential
wealth. I
wealth.
don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
don't
I
have a
don't have a
strong
strong
opinion on
opinion
that,
on that,
right?
right?
But
But
I
I
talked to
talked to
ChatGPT
ChatGPT
because I
because
said,
I said,
Chat,
Chat,
here's
here's
something I'm
something I'm
trying, a
trying, a
phenomenon I'm
phenomena I'm
trying to
trying to
explore.
explore.
Why
Why
is
is
it
it
that
that
people
people
tend to
tend to
put
put
folks
folks
in
in
black and
black and
white
white
categories?
categories?
Because
Because
I
I
believe that
believe
I
that
could
I could
learn
learn
from
from
everybody.
everybody.
You know,
You know,
as Ty
Ty
Lopez, who I
Lopez, who I
follow
follow
closely,
closely,
says,
says,
he says,
he
I
says,
can
I
learn
can
from
learn from
everybody,
everybody,
even if
even
it's
if it's
what
what
not to
not to
do,
do,
right?
right?
So I
So
feel
I feel
like there's
like there's
kind of
kind
like
of
a
like a
hang
hang
up
up
in
in
society where
society
it's
where it's
like,
like,
oh,
oh,
I
I
don't
don't
believe
believe
in
in
billionaires, so
billionaires,
I'm
so
not
I'm
going to
not going to
learn from
learn from
them,
them,
right?
right?
But
But
if
if
if you
if
want to
you want to
learn
learn
to
to
play
play
tennis,
tennis,
right?
right?
And your
And your
friend
friend
plays
plays
tennis
tennis
every
every
couple
couple
weeks, couple
weeks, couple
times a
times a
month,
month,
you've got
you've
the
got the
option to
option to
learn
learn
tennis
tennis
from your
from your
buddy,
buddy,
or you
or you
also are
also are
friends with
friends
this
with this
professional
professional
tennis
tennis
player.
player.
Wouldn't you
Wouldn't
want to
you want to
learn
learn
tennis
tennis
from the
from the
professional
professional
tennis
tennis
player?
player?
You
You
know?
know?
So
So
this
this
idea of
idea of
like,
like,
yeah, I
yeah, I
personally
personally
might
might
not
not
believe
believe
in
in
billionaires,
billionaires,
and
and
I
I
might
might
believe
believe
that
that
money
money
should be
should be
made
made
ethically, for
ethically, for
example. Not
example, not
saying that
saying that
billionaires can
billionaires can
make, I
make,
don't
I
know,
don't know,
just
just
putting
putting
myself in the
myself in the
shoes of the
shoes of the
commenter,
commenter,
right?
right?
If
If
I
I
want to
want to
learn how
learn
to
how to
make
make
more
more
money at
money
my
at my
job, I should
job, I should
probably
probably
study the
study the
best,
best,
right?
right?
Even
Even
if
if
I'm
I'm
only
only
trying
trying
to
to
make
make
an
an
extra
extra
10
10
grand per
grand per
year and
year
not
and
be a
not be a
billionaire.
billionaire.
So I
So I
asked
asked
ChatGPT, I was
ChatGPT, I was
like,
like,
can you
can
give
you
me
give me
some
some
book
book
recommendations
recommendations
exploring
exploring
this
this
like
like
phenomena from
phenomena
a
from a
psychological
psychological
perspective?
perspective?
Like,
Like,
why are
why are
people
people
so
so
quick to
quick to
completely
completely
write
write
off
off
everything
everything
somebody
somebody
says
says
because
because
their
their
character
character
doesn't
doesn't
completely
completely
line up
line
with
up
them
with them
100%?
100%?
And it
And
was
it was
just
just
great. It gave
great.
me
It gave
some
me some
great,
great,
like,
like,
rigorous
rigorous
kind of
kind of
reads
reads
to
to
follow up,
follow
and
up, and
ChatGPT
ChatGPT
helped me
helped me
think
think
deeper, you
deeper, you
know?
know?
I have been for quite some time saying I learn from everybody. I learn what to do. I learn what not to do. Purely through observation, through having conversation, through reading. The whole premise of education is to be able to study multiple sides of a topic and be able to synthesize that information to take away from it how you're going to act, what you actually believe. It doesn't mean that when you synthesize that information and you take away what you believe, that a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a year from now, that your thoughts is different after the synthesis of that information because you gained more information, you've gained more knowledge. Education is an iterative process. You're always learning, you're always getting a different perspective perspective. And if you are a real learner, then that means that maybe what I thought and believed today, I may not necessarily think and believe tomorrow because I've come across new information that shows me something totally different. That's the process of education. That's the process of learning. So to be able to listen to a politician that I may not necessarily agree with, I'm learning something
Mm.
Mm.
about how they think and what they think and why they think the way they think. You learn from adversarial conditions and environments. That's when you learn the most. You learn the most when you fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to learn when you're always successful because whatever these billionaires are doing, at some point in time they fail somewhere down the line.
Yep.
Yep.
And then what they did was they hit that one good idea that enabled them to launch, gain revenue, gain profit, gain wealth. And then they took that and they probably began to invest it in different places in different industries that allowed an amalgamation of wealth from multiple industries, but they learned. But in their learning, they also had some fundamentals that they stuck to. Now, uh, I think the gentleman at Amazon had was it a $40 million wedding not long ago somewhere?
Yeah, in
Yeah, in
Venice.
Venice.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he
like
rented
Yeah,
the
rented
whole
the
yeah.
whole
place
place
out.
He
out.
rented you know, that money is a drop in the bucket to him. Would I have done that? Probably not. A lot of people would have done that. He could have done
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of other good for humanity with
Mhm.
that
Hmm.
kind of money. But that gets you to thinking that when they get to that place, they feel like I can do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. And it's mine, it's me, and this is what I want to do without having humanity, uh, taking in consideration humanity. Let me put it that way. Because there are a lot of other problems that could have been solved for $40 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of other problems. And so when you start speaking of morality, what I have come to learn and to say is that their morals are just different from mine. But then I go back to the foundation of the country. Because the foundation of the country wasn't founded as a moral country anyway, given the fact that you had some people who were quote unquote free, and you at the same time you were declaring your independence, you also were enslaving another group of people. And
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time, not only that, but you also were very limiting to your wife because women couldn't do anything. They couldn't be landowners. They
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
vote. That's for a long time. So there was a lot of suppression happening if you were not a white male. And so,
And we
And
you
we
know,
and
we
we
built the
built the
country on
country on
top of
top
a
of a
population that
population
was
that was
already
already
living
living
here
here
too.
too.
had been here for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were only discovered when I discovered them because I looked a particular way. So that's my discovery. So
Yeah.
yeah, so all of that. And so, you can call it immoral. I just say that morals is different. It's different, and so you have to question. You question all that. So whatever you're going to launch as a product or a service, look at the contribution that it makes toward humanity from a positive perspective, right? Because I mean, even though those guys made a ton of money, Amazon is valuable, right? And I've always said this: somewhere down the line, there's going to be something bigger and better than Amazon. It's just the process of evolution. Alibaba has raised its head. Other entities have raised their head. So Amazon is not as profitable as it used to be.
Mhm.
Even
Hmm.
though it cornered the market, right? And then people are also realizing that I'm buying from these guys, but I'm hurting my local marketplace by not patronizing them. So now I need to return to my local marketplace and buy. And so even though it's a big behemoth, at some point in time, somebody's going to be better than Amazon. We just have to imagine it because it's going to happen. That's the evolution of man.
Yeah. I heard somebody say a while ago, like, that they refuse to believe anything that takes their power away, you know? So yeah, I guess, the pendulum has swung toward Amazon, but I feel that kind of cultural zeitgeist too of like shopping local, and it's like, maybe there's a way to have more localized systems. I think we see that like with the food industry too. Like there's more of a desire for like locally grown stuff over
Yes.
the top down food industry. So the people, I guess, drive the bus in that sense. Um, but I just want to ask, before we jump off here, let's talk about the new operating system here. What was the official name? The periodic table of the. I was just reading about it. Fascinating
Yeah,
analogies.
periodic table of organizational development. I call it PTOD, PTOD. And it evolved from being a framework to an operating system because I began to think about, Microsoft, its operating systems, Oracle, and all the different. I'm like, these are really operating systems that are embedded in organizations and embedded in people's lives. Our operating system is our belief system, how we think and how we operate as humans. So we have an operating system that we utilize on a day-to-day basis. And in conjunction with the periodic table, I've always been intrigued by the periodic table. One, I've never taken chemistry in my life, but my daughter was a chemistry major. And understanding that, chemistry is really about the reactions and the actions of different elements together and what you can create. Right? It's the elements that allow the creation of different products, uh, and you name it, wherever we are, there's some elements at work through nature that enable us to do what we do, to be where we'll be, to eat what we eat, to drink what we drink. H2O is an element, right? And so I've been intrigued by the periodic table. And being that my daughter was a chemistry major, I was like, look, if I were a chemistry major, the bathtub would never be the same again because I would use it to mix and, try to create something.
Yeah,
And so I asked myself, how can I use that same framework of the periodic table in the world of business, specifically organizational development? And so as I started to play around with the periodic table, look at, alignment and engagement and communication and organizational culture, started to play more and ask better prompts of AI, guess what happened? I came across the periodic table organizational development that became an operating system, right? And I got all of these elements. There's 60 elements that are part of this whole operating system that you can, if there's a challenge that a company is having, I can go in not only to use the periodic table and the
Man, and there is where it cuts off when Dr. Terry was talking about his new periodic table of organizational development. Unfortunately, I let my Zoom subscription lapse, so the interview cut off at 40 minutes, and then you did see my nice camera ran out of space on the memory card. So, apologies to Dr. Terry and apologies to my followers for the cutoff here. I would love to have Dr. Terry back to talk more about the periodic table of organizational development. Definitely check Dr. Terry out on LinkedIn. He's Terry Jackson, PhD. And then his website is jcgconsultinggroup.com. So be sure to check out what he's doing with the PTOD and all the great consulting services. I've used Dr. Terry he's been a great coach to me, and I've seen him do great things in business as well, people's businesses. So